Oh, hey YouTube. Today I'm going to make a very quick piece of temporary furniture for my daughter's bedroom. My daughter has a few houseplants she's nursing, and she asked for a very temporary shelf to go below her windowsill so she could put a few plants in the afternoon sun in the windows. So I'm gonna build a very quick freestanding shelf for her to put some plants on. Follow along. So the idea is I'm going to take these couple of store-bought pine 1x12s and a little bit of leftover scrap lumber from the lumber pile and produce a freestanding shelf. Off the cuff napkin design. One piece is a 6-foot tall piece of 2x12, and then we cut it in half. We're going to have two 3-foot shelves, and then the other piece is 4-foot tall. I'm going to cut it in half, and we're going to have 2-foot tall sides. I am going to go in the junk pile and going to add a piece of brace along the back, probably a little 2 or 3 inch wide piece of something, whatever I have left over, to help tighten it up. We're going to use pocket hole screws for the joinery and glue, and when we're all done we'll sand it down and stain it, and it should be easy schmeezy project. There we go. So for starters, we're just going to clean up the ends of the boards. And now we're going to cut this in half. I want the bottom shelf to fit inside of the side pieces, so I'm going to remove 1.5 inches, so that should allow it to fit on the inside. So this piece is going to go on the back underneath the top shelf. So I'm going to drill pocket holes on the sides and going up. And I think we'll put them about every 6 inches. All right, pocket holes done for that piece. The legs won't get any pocket holes. I am mistaken, the legs will get pocket holes. Let's do that. The legs will get 3 pocket holes to hold the lid on. So the top shelf won't get any pocket holes because they're going to join from below, so we can set that aside. The middle shelf is going to get pocket holes below it. So let's see which side we want up. I think I want this side up. Future reference, it is much easier to clamp your pocket hole jig down before making holes, but again, this is just a quickie piece of furniture. And that should be all of our pocket holes. I think I'm going to go ahead and sand and stain these pieces before assembly. So let's get that done.
Well, I don't think anybody particularly enjoys sanding. It's a necessary process, and I find it easier to sand the pieces down pre-assembly. So all I'm doing here is roughing up the boards with a light sand with 220 sandpaper on an orbital sander, and I'm really just smoothing the surfaces and breaking the edges. Not spending a whole lot of time here, not moving up in grits, not going to take it up any higher than 220, just sort of roughing it up so the stain will take. So once all of the parts are sanded down and the edges are all broken, no splinters and no sharp edges is going to hurt anybody, I'm going to add some stain here. Now I'm just using an old can I had sitting on the shelf. This is a Minwax poly shade, so it's got the poly and the color mixed into one, and I'm just applying it liberally to all sides and in all the pocket holes. I find it easiest with this poly shade stuff to just use smooth strokes. Like a lot of stains you wipe on heavy and then wipe off the excess. With this, I find, because it has the poly built in, I find it's easier just to wipe it on heavy and use long, smooth strokes, just like you would with painting, and leave it on a little heavy. It usually dries very uniform if you can avoid a lot of back and forth brush marks, brush looking marks with your rag. I suppose it could be applied with a brush. I've only used old rags to do this process, and I think it turns out okay. After I cover all of the exposed edges and all of the holes for the pocket holes screws, and apply the last little bit of stain here, I'm just setting them aside, propped up so that they can dry. I'm going to go ahead and give them overnight to dry. This polyshade stuff stays gummy for a little longer than normal regular stain, so I am going to let them sit overnight and let them dry.
Well, I had hoped that they would have dried faster than they did, but after leaving them overnight, they're dry now. So no big deal. We can pick up where we left off.
A couple of my boards developed a little bit of cupping, a little bit of bowing. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's sort of frowning or smiling at you or frowning at you. I guess it depends on what mood the wood's in. So I'll have to clamp that to a straight piece of wood to straighten that out while I'm using pocket screws for the assembly. I've got Titebond 3 here. It's not necessary, but it's what's in the bottle, so it's what we're going to use. Titebond 2 would do just fine. So the first thing we're going to do is attach one of the legs to the top piece with these pocket hole screws, but we're going to clamp it down first because pocket hole screws like to move on you as you're driving the screw home unless they're clamped tight. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to put some glue on it first, and then I'm going to reclamp it and use pocket hole screws. So once I've got the glue in the joint, then I'm going to use the clamps to hold it together tightly while I drive the pocket hole screws home. I had just recently overdriven a screw pretty badly, so I'm a little gun shy on the trigger there. And then I'm just wiping off any glue squeeze out as the joint tightens up. Same thing for the other side. We'll just put the leg on, clamp it in place, get it where we want it, clamp it in place, and then drive the screws home and wipe off any excess squeeze out. Now for the middle shelf, I'm just using a couple of 12-inch pieces of scrap to set in place to set my shelf on so that I know the shelf is level. We're going to do a little bit of a dry fit here and set the shelf in place, make sure it looks right, make sure we have the right side up, make sure it fits, and then take it apart, apply the glue and clamp it together and drive the pocket hole screws home. This board was also cupped a little bit, so you can see I'm adding a couple of straight boards, I guess they're called cauls, to straighten the cup out of the shelf. What I'm doing here, I didn't notice until after the wood was stained. There was a crack developing in that corner, and I know when I straighten that smile out of that piece of wood, it's going to crack worse. So I went ahead and tried to stabilize the crack by pushing glue into the crack. So I know a lot of people use epoxy because it'll flow into the cracks, but I just forced some of the glue in there and wiped off the excess, and that should stabilize that crack just fine. And it's the underside of the shelf, so you won't see it anyway. So once we can squeeze the shelf into place so we know it won't move while we're driving the screws, we can drive the pocket hole screws home. Last part of the assembly is a design feature included in every piece of IKEA furniture as a little back brace that goes along the bottom of the top shelf. So I'm just going to spread some glue on the ends, put it in place, and drive those pocket hole screws home as well.
wipe it down. Well, all the glue should be dry now. Let's take the clamps apart and see how we did. This was a very simple project. It took a little longer than I was anticipating. I was expecting it to be just a few hour project. Turned into a couple of day project with dry times. But beyond that, the only real struggle here for a budding woodworker is the home goods store lumber. These 1x12s were cupped really bad and they weren't in very good shape. But for a simple project where you're not milling up your own lumber and you're not creating a very complex piece of furniture, this is a really easy project to get started on. Sort of piddle out here in the shop to try to make something. Get these clamps off of here. All right, so here we go. This will be a very nice plant shelf underneath the windowsill in my daughter's room. She's going away to college, so this will be a very temporary fix, but it'll allow her to grow some plants, and no harm, no foul if she's watering plants and it messes up the shelf. It's very inexpensive. I think the materials for this project were less than $30. I had the glue and the screws, pocket hole jig, miter saw, and a couple of clamps, and that's really all it took to build this. It's a very simple piece of furniture. You don't have to have a pocket hole jig if you don't already own one. This would be really easy to do, either drilling through, assembling from the outside with countersunk screws and covering over the holes. You could brad nail and pin it in glue. There's several different methods you could put this together with that wouldn't require pocket hole screws if you didn't want to use that joinery method. But it looks like it's solid, and we're gonna put some plants on it. Thanks for watching. Oh yeah, please leave a thumbs up and a comment and subscribe if you like these sort of videos. Thank you. So here's the final product. Looks like it's gonna hold some plants right about the windowsill level just fine. A little shelf underneath for knickknacks, and hope she likes it. Thanks for watching.